All right, let's see. Nope, nobody in the attendees yet. Let's maybe give it a minute since we're still missing John and Tony. Let's see. Oh, there's Tony. Move him over to panel. Okay. You know what, we've got a quorum here, so let's go ahead and start, since I know we have a lot of ground still to cover. All right, so this is the Tuesday, April 26th, 2022 meeting of the Southborough ARPA Committee. We will do a quick roll call. Ms. Luttrell?
Here.
Mr. Wood is not here currently. Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Martell?
Hi.
Mr. Schoner?
Here.
Ms. Rubenstein?
Here.
And I'm here, Andrea Hamilton. Okay, very quickly pop over to the agenda. Let me know when you can see. All right, so we have review the fund request log. There's nothing new that's come in, so I think we should just continue on. We had left on if there's anything left to talk about on the survey. Is that anything anyone's going to want to bring up? I don't have anything specific to cover unless there's anything anyone wants to discuss. Okay. So then it's really kind of these three items. So the proposal discussion, continuing evaluation approach, those two discussions kind of happen in tandem at this point. And then if we're ready for it, starting to discuss and prepare our final report for the select board. So I'd say that by the end of today, we should have a clear roadmap for when we think we'll be able to get in front of the select board. Next steps, we have a bunch of minutes. So right now, I believe the only one we had beforehand was for the 14th. So those ones from Anne. I didn't miss any others, did I? Okay. Unfinished business, public comment at the end, and confirming for our next meeting. All right. So with that, I think we jump right in. I'm gonna pop the tracker up. I'm gonna do a 30-second refresh of where we're at currently, and then I think that we have a couple of areas that we wanted to discuss more in depth today. So last time we had agreed that we were committed to doing some sort of a tax abatement relief plan over a couple of years. We tentatively have the $500,000 number in there, but that's subject to change. That's not agreed on yet. We've confirmed we will do the senior center renovations with the $400,000 price tag. We agreed that we wanted some form of premium pay for safety employees. We haven't fully committed to the number yet, though. We are looking at supporting the part-time mental health clinician for youth and family services, their marketing and outreach materials, and the one-year contract for interface referral services. So really their full proposal. This is a big one we need to talk about today, was all the MTC requests. Sidewalks, we also agreed that that was something we wanted to move forward with funding. We currently have this top end number, the 1.2 million in. That's sort of the maximum number that DPW could do something with. We haven't committed to that number yet. It's just in there as a placeholder right now. We decided that the clicker devices we were going to decline to fund, and that there's separate money if that's something that gets moved forward through a different avenue that advisory could support. ADA compliances in the town buildings. This was the facilities request. This is $50,000, but again, that should be up in that top line number right now for the tax relief piece. So it's a little tricky because we're agreeing to this, but it's in that 150 that the select board is going to apply towards this year's tax increase. Lundblad Field, we just don't have enough information to move forwards with it this time, so we are not going. So we decided that was red. And that remains true, right? Nobody has received updated numbers from them, correct? I have not. Okay. ADA upgrades to facilities. This is the recreation request, so this is separate than the facilities ones. So this one we decided to move forwards with. We wanted to come back to this public health escalation, living wage increase. I think I was the one holding it up there. I'm okay to move that. We can talk briefly about it, but if everyone else feels that they don't want to move forwards with this, I'm okay to not also. This one, the staff funding for the health director, this one's a little bit controversial, but right now we've got this $100,000 number in there that would cover either the scenario as it is in the warrant today, or if the adjusted advisory proposal is accepted, and they end up funding the nurse this year and not the 2-year director position. So I think as of now, we don't have a recommendation for which way we believe this money should be used, but it would cover either of those scenarios. The per diem vaccination staff for the 6,500 we agreed to. We did not decide to move forward with either of the septic proposals. The national grid property, we decided to move forward with that. I think there's still a little bit of work that'll need to be done by the select board to turn this into a real project, but we think that the money should be there to do it. Historical commission signage we agreed to for the 26,532. The audit support is already committed at the 5,000. We decided not to move forward with the mini grants for education, arts, and culture. It just wasn't something that came up high on the survey, and isn't it sort of backed by any of the other metrics we've been using. The feasibility study for regulatory submitted by SHOPC, we declined this one. The sense is that there have already been studies done, and we're not sure sort of what additional information would be gained by doing another. This one, funding for homeowners impacted by COVID-19. So this is money that would go into the trust, the Southborough Trust Fund, to provide economic relief. We said we'd need to update some of the language here for the final proposal, but this we agreed to move forwards with. The other two, the proposal for the feasibility study for the South Union School build out and the feasibility on wastewater, we declined to move forwards with because in general, we're trying to avoid feasibility studies, and there's already money committed to this one down here. The Peninsula Trail, oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Anne, go ahead, Anne.
I just wondered, did we verify that going into the trust fund was an allowable use of the money?
That's a good question, but you mean just from I can send that I can send that over to the consultant to check. I know that we certainly can support economic relief with the money, but just like the actual mechanics of it, is this something that becomes challenging? That's a fair question. I can send that over.
Thank you.
Yep. If we can't do it this way, then I will ask her sort of what other options we have, because there must be mechanisms to make this work if it's an allowable usage in general to do relief. Sorry, this is not worded well at all, but okay. Peninsula Trail, we said we would move forwards with. The feasibility study for the shared youth path for the Boston Worcester Airlines, this merited more discussion. It's a feasibility study, which in general we've been trying to avoid, but we think this might actually end up falling more towards the connectivity that the sidewalks projects are trying to achieve and becomes kind of part of that overall piece. So this needed a little more discussion. Southborough Trail enhancements, we decided to move forwards with. The consultant support from SHOPC, we declined that one. It's a headcount number, which we're trying to avoid. And this one, the $500,000 for affordable housing trust, I had sent around a little bit more information on that for us to review and bring to the discussion here. So the total number we are at right now, and again, understanding that we have that really large sidewalk number, is 3.16 million. It puts us a little over 100 grand over what we have to spend right now. Does anyone feel like anything that was just, that we've got anything wrong? Are we good if we go back and just talk about the yellows at this point? No one has changed their mind in the last week. I'm sorry, go ahead. Did I hear someone?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I thought you framed it all very well.
Phew. All right. So let's go back then and let's start moving through our outstanding yellows, right? And so again, sort of understanding this bottom line number here, we're in the phase now where as we pull things in, we have to find concessions and other things that we have, right? And again, I think probably most of that comes from that big sidewalk number. But that's where we're at. So I think we come back to the premium pay at the end. I don't think we need to redo that. And I think we come back to the tax abatement at the end, because those are both numbers we have some flexibility in adjusting. So let's talk about the Municipal Technology Committee. So we have 4 proposals from them: upgrading the town website, upgrading the town's Wi-Fi capabilities, implementing the town-wide event scheduling, and implementing the interactive conference room capabilities. And from what Tony had said previously, these 2 are not really ready to go projects, whereas these 2 are. Tony, you just came off mute. Were you looking to say something?
I was just getting ready if you asked me a question.
Is there anything I'm missing with those?
No, I think that's a very fair summary. These first 2, I think, are just much closer to being implementable, and the second 2 are farther away from being implementable. So in my opinion, covering the first 2 would be a good choice.
Would anyone disagree with us reading out the bottom 2 out the gate and saying that since they're not really, they're just not there yet, and we know we're already over our spend, can we just pull those out right now? Okay, let's do that. So these 2. Okay, so upgrading the town's website to support more collaborative features has this $50,000 to $80,000 price tag on it. It's part of the master plan goal. It was supported by the Board of Health as anything that can improve doing online business in town to prevent in-person things. And then upgrading the town's Wi-Fi capabilities, which also in the master plan, not one of our top 5 in our survey rankings, has a pretty significant number attached to it. And this isn't really a Board of Health support. That was really just the top one. Yeah, so let's open this up for discussion. The feeling I got from, Anne, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Anne.
I think technology is constantly in need of being updated. It's very expensive, and it often gets down to the bottom of the list because of that. And I would support those 2 items being funded by the ARPA funds.
Mimi?
I agree with everything Ann said. Infrastructure is one of those non-sexy things, but needs to be done. And I know our website is ancient and hard to use.
Tim?
I agree completely.
So if we start with just the first one, the website, does everyone agree that that's something we should be funding? Does anyone want to argue against it?
I would love to see a plan and a real budget as to how the design is going to go before committing to a figure, but I'm not against the concept. Just, it's sort of, I want to fund both of these, but the reality is that neither one of them do we know the actual price tag yet. And I don't know if the select board will get it, sort of in time.
I'm going to pull the proposal up and just take a quick look to see what they say.
I'll just
go ahead,
say here,
Tony.
I'll just say, yeah. So, I mean, Joe, you're right. I mean, these both will need to go out to bid. There's certainly more work to be done on both of these. as a committee, we make a recommendation, the select board has to approve, right? All the other process steps in town have to occur. So, and I don't think, the IT group in Southborough is not ready with a detailed plan on this. So I think we'd be approving, this, we'd be making this a recommendation to proceed. I think this makes sense, but if the committee doesn't approve that, that's perfectly fine with me. But the typical town processes for going out to bid would have to occur with this.
Well, is there any appetite for maybe committing a number for technology projects? Given that we don't know either one or the price tag, so we commit to, we can put the projects up as being the reason, but put up a figure number for that we're willing to put into this process for technology.
In my opinion, they recommended these, we're dealing with what they recommended. We essentially vote up or down on what people have, brought forward. So I personally would just deal with these as they are presented today.
And I had seen your hand.
I guess my question would have been, is the staff capable of upgrading the website? I mean, a lot of people do their own websites. A lot of communities do their own websites. I mean, that 80,000 may just be, that seems very reasonable to me, actually, for technology. It's an upgrade, not a total build from scratch.
Tim, I see your hand.
I guess I would say I'd be careful about reading too much into the word upgrade there. Having done many projects like this myself in the past, the town will end up with what looks like a new website if we go down this path.
We only have one employee in our MIS department, so he won't be able to work on this.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Sorry.
Yeah. The town is one IT employee. I think the town is contemplating hiring a second one. Both of these projects, as described to me, would depend on, outside vendors coming in and making big contributions. They'd have to go through a bid proposal, however the town does that. So I haven't seen the town, how the town does this myself, so I don't know, but I think, these are projects that we have to just kind of take on face value.
Is it helpful? I mean, I just opened up the proposal for the website, for example. I can kind of show the level of detail because go ahead, Joe. You can talk while
I was going to say, it seems like there's enough here to just add them in, and then let's add them in and shake down the list farther. And if anybody has second thoughts, again, we can come back to it, but it seems like there's enough support among everybody here. Am I wrong?
I mean, I would say, in looking at the proposal, it's not an itemized list of everything that will happen, but like there's detail around timeline. There's detail around, expected ongoing cost for licenses, right? I think it's thought through as much as it can be for not having gone out to bid yet. Do we want to? Here. Oh, this is 250. And I guess we should probably use the higher end number and assume that, right? Do we want to leave this yellow and pull the numbers up and see where we're at?
I would just switch it to green.
All right. This is
I
green.
agree.
We're going to concession it. Okay. All right. Okay. And then we leave off these two. Okay. All right. So sidewalk, I think that's one of our flexible numbers. We come back at the end.
Can you put the spreadsheet up again, please?
Oh, I can. You're not seeing anything I'm looking at.
Thank you.
No, but I do like your background activity. It's exciting.
There's a lot going on in my house tonight. Usually they go upstairs and are sort of squirreled away, but seem to be looking to perform. All right. This one, the public health escalation one, it's a low number, it's 5,500. I was the only one, I think, still advocating for it last week. Given that we are over, I'm comfortable with making this one red. It doesn't move the needle very much in either direction, but my sense is that folks feel really uncomfortable with all the staffing money that's kind of getting put up here and want to start drawing some lines around it. Is that kind of inaccurate?
That one was also the moving parts. It required other towns to also put in the
Yes.
same.
Yes.
So let select board deal with that. They'll figure it out.
Okay. So the shared youth path, Foster
So
was,
I-
yep, sorry, go
I
ahead.
actually had an action item on this one, as you
You
may
did,
recall.
yes.
So I had a very nice conversation with Catherine yesterday. And she agreed that this one should not be funded.
What was her justification for it? Or do we need
Well,
it?
it's feasibility. There are lots of challenges. If you actually read what other towns have tried to do along this Worcester airline, there are a lot of challenges in trying to put this trail in place. And so she thought it was reasonable to not fund this one.
Are folks comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, until they're going to get CSX online, I don't think we need to put money towards a feasibility.
Okay. This last one is the $500,000 for the Affordable Housing Trust. I wish we had John. We don't. I will say I went through all the emails and the attachments. I still don't understand why this money. It looks like the town has voted for it to be allocated. There appears to be some sort of administrative infighting happening. That to me does not justify. Yeah, Mimi, go ahead.
So this is just to go and sit in a trust fund, and money hasn't been expended out of there in 15 years, I think. So there are no projects for affordable housing, so there's nothing that is ready to be moved on. So I would not support this.
Does anyone disagree? I feel bad not having John since I know he was the main supporting voice, but I don't. We're gonna move it red. Moving it red. Okay, so dun dun dun. That's everything. I think that was still outstanding from last week. Yeah.
So to be
Okay.
clear, then those two remaining yellow numbers are
We got three. We've got
the three yellow numbers are in the grand total right now.
correct. Yes.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna do a quick sleep through to make sure I'm not missing anything. So anything that's here should be summed up. So we've got that one. If anyone sees something missing, please tell me to stop, but. Yeah, that should be holistic. Let me just triple check my Exceling here. It would be a bummer to find out we missed something. Nope, we're good. Okay. Okay. So we are currently over by 441, 450. So that's not bad, right? That's pretty close. Tony, I see your hand.
So just my opinion, but I recommend we reduce the sidewalks budget by that amount and call it a day.
I second
Anne,
that.
oh, sorry, go ahead. Anne, I see your hand.
Yeah,
Are we?
I
Well,
thought
we-
Karen was,
We have
Was
a
that an
motion
actual
and a
motion?
second.
Yeah. That's what was that a motion, Tony, or an opinion?
I don't know. I'm voicing my opinion just to move the discussion forward. That was not a motion.
Anne?
I was confused about the 1.2. I thought Karen kind of stepped back in her discussion last week and said that the best number she finds to use is 400. She said, yeah, it'd be great to take 1.2 to do all the projects that were on that list, I thought. And that there were 3 projects that could be done for the 400. And they're in the minutes that I wrote, but I can't remember. It was Richards, St. Mark's North, and I can't remember the other one.
Corderville, Richards,
Yes,
Woodland. Yeah.
I thought if we stuck to the 400, then we could do 5 and 5 for abatement in the next 2 years after this one. No,
So, and maybe, so my takeaway was that she could use up to the 1.2 and anything above 1.2 would be not helpful. But maybe I'm understanding wrong. Joe?
Well, to a certain extent, it's about how much it's going to cost to do the contracts, how she's going to put them out to bid, you know, which ones are chosen, which aren't really her decision. And, you know, whether the town just decides that it's going to do it, whether she really wants to do it or not as well. So, you know, some of this numbers are impetus to say, we want these projects to get done. And, you know, we're pushing DPW to, you know, put these things out and get them done. They tend to like to do sidewalks when they redo roads, but, you know, this is a 3-year window we have. So we have, you know, if we want them done, we have to push that envelope and we have to give a number that'll do it.
And we do, I mean, so we'd sent around, Karen had sent that, I don't remember who did it, but there's the complete streets, I think, assessment, right? And so we do have like a really clear, like ranked order set of projects that have been updated recently. And I believe that's done by the state. So I don't think this is kind of a black hole, right?
I mean, I think I got the sense that because of the craziness in the market, makes it, you know, made it tough for her to really commit to these things. And they're not all shovel ready because they all haven't been prepared for, you know, 2-3 years beforehand because nobody was sure how much money we're going to have, what we're going to do. But, you know, if I think it's a good cause for us to be committing to getting a couple of these ones knocked off so that, you know, in future years, the town is that much more ahead to perpetuate momentum in this direction. And, you know, they're popular, they have political will in terms of if we could keep the tax rate under control, there'd probably be a lot more, you know, banging from the streets to get more of these things in. I know that, you know, John and I, like, if you could tell me right now you were going to get down to Parkerville on that list of streets, I'd be pounding for more money. But, you know, I realize Karen's point of view, which is she can only get so many of these done. And that, you know, the way that she gets public money from that she was talking about, that $400,000 figure, is how much she can get refilled every year from some of these grant programs. So, you know, adding huge amounts of numbers to that doesn't necessarily increase the financial effectiveness from other avenues. So I understand there were a lot of weighing contributors to this, but I think I'd rather have us go for it. And even if, for instance, if Trails gets that grant for the Point Trail, that money could kick back as well. And I'd be more than happy to say that should go back into the sidewalk fund and see how much they can get done. And if they can't at the last, you know, at the end of the near 2-year period that they have to allocate those funds, they have to put them towards something else. They can put them towards just general tax abatement or giving it to the public. That's not something they're not restricted 18 months from now when funds come back in to directing them to all the other things that we know that they can do right away.
Yeah. And I had a point and then it went away. Never mind. Oh, I think to your point, Joe, about the trails, right? I mean, I think that's a really good point, is that, you know, we probably will have a small pot of money that sort of like other things might come in. And I think sidewalks and tax abatement are the two obvious places for anything that's remaining to kind of get dumped to, right? Or anything that doesn't get spent in the 4 years. Tony?
I think there's actually an interesting question here about, so after we make our recommendation, what does the select board want this committee to do as these funds are actually allocated over the next 2 or 3 years? Maybe they don't want us to do anything, or maybe they want us to come back and voice yet another opinion if, you know, some of these funds can't be spent in some particular way. I don't know, not to make it too complicated, but I think there's a question for the select board about what does this committee have a role after it makes its recommendation?
I think that's fair. I think my preference, and others can sort of chime in, is that we kind of leave them with the alternatives, right? Like, so if money comes up, put it here and then put it here, right? Because I think we've got buckets that can eat whatever comes back or doesn't get spent, right? I mean, it can always go towards tax abatement. But yeah, Joe, I see your hand.
Am I correct, Tony, that email that got sent back from Catherine also stated that she would like a option if the money's come back from the Point Trail, because there's a grant that she could use that money also to put in crosswalks for a couple of the trails. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't, just my opinion here, I don't know that we can be, as a committee, making trade-offs in the future for things that may or may not happen. So
I like that. I agree. I think the DPW has to be involved in that anyway, so.
Yeah, so I think at least the way I think about this is we make a recommendation and then that's kind of it. If someone wants us to come back and say, hey, well, some money didn't get spent or something ran over and they want us to voice another opinion, we can, but we can't be making deals in the future.
So to make the math work without adjusting any of the other buckets, this would drop to about sidewalks drop to 750. That's kind of how we get to the right number. So it's over what Karen had initially asked for, but under sort of that max number. That would leave the tax abatement at the $500,000 mark. And it would leave the premium pay at the $300,000 mark, which are sort of the two other things we can toggle at this point without going in and removing something we'd like to do. Anne?
Well, it seems that we would be hitting all of the top goals, all of the top items in the survey if we do that.
Yes.
And that gives us our justification for our choices also
Yes.
in our report.
The only wild card I'm not 100% sure about, and I did mean to reach out to Brian Valentine. So this $500,000 number, that's just a number we sort of felt good about. It's not really based on anything.
It really doesn't have to be based on anything. It can be just a number that we believe that the taxpayers should get relief because this is ARPA and it was meant to go for that. So I like putting at least this number here. I think that, like I said, I don't think there'd be anything wrong if we took all 3 million and just gave it, you know, proportionally to people that pay taxes in the town, because that's where it's all coming from in the first place. Government debt is just us paying. So,
well, let's be careful though, right? Different than property taxes. It's this money's coming from everyone's federal taxes.
yes, but in the end, we live in a town where I think most everybody pays their taxes. So,
but pays property tax to the town. We have a lot of renters, right? They paid federal taxes.
the tax abate. Well, this we put this number in here. We didn't say how.
I don't know that this distinction is actually that important. I mean,
the select board can divide this 500,000 into however they want to put this in.
So do we not?
We don't know who's going to necessarily benefit equally from this.
So do we think that there's a mechanism that one could use that's different? That's not just reducing the number on the warrant, which gets paid for in our property taxes? Like how else would they be reimbursing any of this? My assumption is that this is a reduction on the overall property tax.
Do people pay their own water bills? Because
Depends on where they live in town, right?
If you're a renter and you pay your own water bill, that would be another way as well.
Depends on where you live in town if you're on town water.
No, that's
Right.
not what I meant. I meant
And then
if
it
you're
depends
if you're
on
rent if
what
you're
your-
if you're paying for your water bill on top of your rent, so you pay for your water bill separately in your contract, that would be another way for them to address that. I'm just saying that
Sure.
I'm just saying there are other mechanisms. I'm not saying that that's going to they're not full, they're not complete, but they could also give to the community fund and put some in that way too. That's up to the select board to figure out if that's what we want them to do.
Anne?
Don't we all benefit from police and fire, whether we're a property owner or not? We benefit from the beautification of the town, the signs that are going to go up, anything that if the sidewalks are improved, we all benefit. You don't have to be a property owner to benefit. You don't even have to be a resident. To me, it seems as though anything that we do to reduce tax burden, but do something positive for the community will come under all of this.
Tony?
I think we have to be careful about our language here. I think I read number 3 as actually meaning property tax abatement.
Oh,
Yes, because again, I think to Joe's point, there might be some small ways we could do it through water bill reduction and things like that. Like, as far as the only thing that has been discussed for me from the select board is a decrease on the property tax.
So I think
I believe that is the only thing they are thinking about.
we got to change the language here then to
Yeah.
make it clear that it's property tax abatement.
And I agree, Anne, that anything we do, to make the town nicer benefits everyone who lives here. But I also am cognizant that this is a $500,000 figure, which is the second largest figure we were proposing in this entire thing, that very selectively benefits property owners in town. Right? I mean, that's what it does. And there's other like special, right? Like the senior center very specifically benefits seniors, right? I mean, it's not that it's always going to be even, but that's what
I
this
kind
is
of
doing.
see it. There's a budget that covers the whole town, whether you're a property owner or not. The property owners support that budget, but the non-property owners support it indirectly. If you pay rent, you're paying, part of that is going toward the property owners' property taxes. I don't know. I mean, we're not writing a check to property owners. We're reducing the rate because we're getting some relief from the federal government.
But that's the equivalent of getting a check, right? I mean, if my property tax goes down $200, that's $200 back in my pocket. If my
I guess it's not going up $200 rather than go down $200. I don't know.
It is certainly the
Yeah.
case that a property owner in town who rents that property, if they get a property tax abatement, might very well not raise the rent as much as they would have otherwise.
I've rented pretty recently. I don't believe that to be true at all.
I tell you, in fact, it works that way. It does in fact work that way, but I will stop now.
Joe, I just saw you come off mute.
Yeah, well, I mean, we even, could you go down to the line item where I believe $70,000 is allotted to Shopsy for, is that just for economic distress?
Yes, that's the one that doesn't, this is the flexible one for any kind of economic relief. So this is the relief. So there's the property tax relief, and then there is the generic relief bucket that is for anyone facing economic hardship in town.
I there's part of me that I wish we knew exactly what percentage of the town rents versus owns. So I'm sure it's not.
So Joe,
Yes.
I happen to know those numbers because I was wondering this last week.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Incredibly, I know those numbers, Joe. So, there are organizations that really break down all sorts of interesting data about town governments across the country. So there are 3,500 households in Southborough. and 90% of them own their home.
So that's
looked
actually
this-
not a bad split, right? Because
I
we
looked
kind of
this
the
up
seven,
last week
sorry,
when
go
we were
ahead.
I looked this up last week while we were all talking about this. I thought, what are the actual numbers? And those are the numbers.
So proportionally, we actually have it about right? I mean, the
Uh,
70 in theory can cover owners and non-owners alike.
Proportionally, it
But-
turns out it might be the renters are getting a better deal on these particular numbers.
Well, yeah, but this isn't just for renters, right?
Yeah, no,
It's
but
for
I'm
anyone.
just, yeah. So, but 90% owned residences in town.
Well, we would have to reclassify the 70,000 to include those people, I believe. Or is this just for?
So we had said that this was a really open bucket that is for economic relief, regardless of kind of, it's
So-
not specific to non-homeowners. It's not specific to homeowners. It's a needs-based relief program that
We're
could-
essentially saddling Shopsy with the responsibility of non-property owners filing tax abatement claims.
no, this is not tax abatement specific. So the original language came in and was focused on
No,
tax abatement.
that's not,
And then,
that's not,
yep, sorry,
that-
go ahead,
that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that if we're labeling this bucket as a source of abatement, so to speak, for non-property owners to apply for money because they feel they're paying taxes.
No.
Then Shopsy would then have to process for all the people, the 10% of the town that feels that they're not benefiting, they would apply then to this bucket for some sort of relief because they're not getting it directly from the abatement that we did
No.
for the entire property owners in town.
No, it's different. It's not a one-to-one, right? So the property tax one, everyone gets a piece, right? If you pay taxes and property tax in town, you get a piece automatically. This behaves a little differently. It's not like we are compensating you up to the same $100 or $200 as all the property owners in town are getting, right? This is a specific separate program that is for any resident, property or non-property alike, who are facing an economic hardship, and it can apply based on that economic hardship, not specifically because of a tax situation, but for whatever situation, and it will get administered by the Southborough Trust Fund.
I understand. Okay, so we're saying
What-
it's not for that.
Not for what?
I'm not sure everybody's getting what I'm talking about here. If we're relegating the claims in that category, we're saying it's not for that, but yet it is sort of for that. We could end up forcing Shopsy into the position of fielding all claims, which is fine with me. I'm just pointing this out. Because if I were a renter
I'm
in
lost,
this
Joe.
town-
I'm
if I were a
missing
renter in
something.
this town, I would go to Shopsy and say, everybody else got a tax abatement. I
Hey,
have a
Joe.
financial hardship, and so therefore, I'm applying for essentially tax aid.
Yeah, but Shopsy has nothing to do with this moving forward. This would be money that the Commission of Public Trust would manage. Shopsy just put this in our Excel sheet. They're done.
Okay,
Does that answer or make it, I feel like, does that clarify it, Joe? Are you good with that, or is there still something we're missing here?
I said my piece. I'm done. I'm good. Thanks.
Mimi, you had your hand up?
Tim said what I was going to say, that it's not being administered by Shopsy. And I'm good with what we've come up with, and I'm ready to move on when everybody else is.
So the last two yellow buckets, so again, right now, dropping the sidewalk funding to 750, we're about whole here. That leaves the 300 for premium pay and the $500,000 in property tax abatement, right? Does anyone want to adjust any of those numbers? We're good?
Do we have a good sense, Joe, that the $500,000 will give us enough of a cushion for next year for the budget?
No.
how much do you think we would
Way,
need?
the way these things flow back and forth, you know, to a certain extent, some things are just done, you know, in the time that they're in the window that we have. I mean, if you're talking about what we do on capital, I mean, Jason did a really good job over the past couple of years of helping the committee sort through and filter things out and move things to better timeframes for the town, because we could. So, you know, a lot of what goes into each and every year is, you know, what can we do, what should we be doing, and what can we put off because we don't need to, or because we feel that we have to. So there's never enough money, but that's part of the whole budgeting process. And then you have to go through town meeting anyway. So best laid plans can be totally run amok.
So as of right now, 150,000-ish, it's a little over, of this is going towards this year. So it'll leave 350-ish for the remaining 2 years. I have a sense that the select board will try to increase that because they want it to be under the 5% increase. We don't have to agree with that. We don't. We can say this is how the numbers fall. We think it's important to fund these other things. But I expect that they will try to push that number up. Are we confident that do we feel good backing this number? With the knowledge it's probably not as high as they want. I am. I think we're funding the right things, but
I support that number.
I think there's also, I mean, there's some things in here that the time frame may leave that money for the select board to do other things with it, because things may not get done or may not, you know, you may have grants that throw money back. I mean, this is going to be an elastic process moving forward for the select board.
yeah. And I think to your point earlier, oh, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've, as a committee, done a very nice job. We came up with a list. We polled all the town organizations. We surveyed the town. We've covered how the town prioritized. We have a very defendable story here. This all looks like very rational the way it's organized. I mean, our debates have been, you know, calm and lucid. I mean, you know, I think we've done a good job. These are good numbers. And all we're doing is making a recommendation. If the select board wants to do something else, that's their choice. So I don't think we can try to re-engineer these numbers based on what the select board may or may not want to do in the future.
That's fair. Do folks agree also with the idea that as additional funds come up, our recommendation would be that the select board look at potentially putting them into increasing the sidewalk funding up to that 1.2 million, or putting it over to the increased property tax abatement if there's not another sort of, or do we not want to talk about the future at all? Okay.
No, I think that's probably an excellent way to do it. Both of those are, for lack of a better term, are direct funds that the select board can hold and use and feed back into capital items that may or may not come up. I mean, as I was alluding to Tim, I mean, things do come up. So the select board may easily, you know, with $750,000 sitting in sidewalks, they may easily take $50,000, $100,000 or something that they need and use it on a capital item that goes bad that we just weren't expecting. I think the only thing that may come up is going through town meeting and other things that people may want to put some controls on the way the select board can use that money, but we haven't seen that yet.
I think I was thinking more in the other direction, where if like that grant came through, the money would then drop into the buckets as opposed to coming out of the buckets. But I suppose I could see it going either way. I mean, or we could just leave it at these are the numbers, right? And if they want us to come back and look at something, then.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just seems like they asked us for a recommendation. We're making a recommendation. In the future, if circumstances change and they want our opinion again, we can potentially give them a different opinion. But trying to do a what if analysis of, well, if this happens or that happens, and this is how the numbers should be shifted around, that seems challenging at this point.
All right, so we got numbers. Do we want to take a swing through everything one last time and then vote on it? Does that sound good? All right, we'll do this quick. So $500,000 for property tax abatement over the next few years. Clearly property tax abatement, right? Tim, I know you brought up last week that we would want to somehow make sure that there was a concern about, does it mean the select board is cherry picking capital projects to do rather than just sort of subtracting this off of the final warrant line item? Is that something we want to address in the language somehow? I'm
In
not
the
saying it
report?
eloquently. What's that?
In the report, I mean, we can make a recommendation, right? That all of the warrant articles go before town meeting and then this be taken off the top afterwards, as opposed to cherry picking things and not sending them before town meeting. But they're gonna do what they want anyway, so.
Okay, so we just leave it as is. Okay. Senior center, the 400,000. The premium pay for, so this is now not just public safety for all, this becomes all eligible town employees. And this is the 5,000 for full-time employees, 1,000 for part-time employees. Okay. Youth and Family Services, it's the full set. It's the part-time mental health clinician. It's the marketing and outreach materials and the 1-year contract with Interface Referral Services. Upgrade the town's website to support more collaborative features. So this is the website upgrade for 80. Improving the town's Wi-Fi capabilities for 250. Not doing the townwide event scheduling or the interactive conference rooms. Sidewalks, the number we landed on was 750. So this is higher than what was asked for, which I think shows our seriousness about sidewalks, but lower than that 1.2, which would pretty significantly limit our ability to do other activities. Various ADA compliance issues throughout town buildings. Again, this is $50,000, but that's already in that top line property tax abatement number. Oops, sorry, clickers were out. Lundblad, we didn't have an opinion on the worthiness of the project itself, but we just don't have a number, and so we can't consider it. Recreation, ADA upgrades, that kind of goes hand in hand with the other ADA compliance for facilities for 20. Not doing the Greater Borough's PH escalation because it requires buy-in from other towns, as well as sort of continues this sort of staffing thing that we don't want to support. The staff funding for the health director or nurse position. Advisory recommendation. And I'm spelling that terribly wrong, but that's fine. I think this is actually up to 105. And we have the money there, so I just want to make sure we have the accounting right. If we do the nurse, it was 54 plus 50. Vaccination staff for ongoing vaccination clinics for 6,500. The septic files, we declined because there's likely other money, and they weren't a priority in the survey or the master plan. The purchase of the National Grid property, which the select board will need to take forwards into turning into an actual project, but we'd like to earmark the money for that. Signage for downtown for the 26,532. Audit support, which gets triggered by us just having this money. Mini grants, which were nice, but just didn't have the support behind them. And so we didn't move forwards with it. Feasibility for the regulatory issues. At this point, we're really not funding any other feasibility studies. So I think all feasibility just kind of goes in one bucket. Is not something we're supporting here. $70,000 for all other forms for all forms of economic hardship that will be administered by the South Borough Community Trust. And so no one's confused. Again, 2 more feasibility studies which are out. The money for the Peninsula Trail, which could potentially have a grant behind it, in which case the select board could choose something else to do with this money or come back and ask us for additional recommendations. But for right now, assuming that grant doesn't come through, we would support that. This is feasibility, the South Borough Trail enhancements, which are sort of a concrete set of nicening up projects for our trails. Consultant support for ShopC, we don't support staffing. And then this $500,000 for the Affordable Trust House. The money should be coming from CPC, so we are not supporting that. It squares us within $4,000, which probably goes away to the consultant anyway. Joe.
I'd like that $4,162 on a gift certificate, please.
Perfect. It's you know, we can get it in Target gift cards for our, I think actually that's very illegal. I take that back. Good. Anything anyone wants to talk about anymore? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that the committee accept.
Oh, I just.
Oh.
Anne, were you looking to do a motion or did you have discussion?
No, I just had a question. Do we have to do
You
a
mind waiting,
written
Joe? Sorry.
report, or is this are we motioning for a written report or a presentation, or how are we doing this?
Yeah, I think it's just a report is specified. I'm looking at right now. I don't think like the format of the report. I think right now the only thing we would be voting on is agreement that this is how the money would be spent. And then we still need to do sort of the administrative part of putting it all together. Does that make sense? All right. Yeah, here, it's committee shall develop a report to present to the select board that will include a list of all proposals submitted for consideration in addition to those recommended for funding. So I guess we actually, that implies presentation only. All right, Joe, I'm kicking it back to you because you were working on a good one.
No, it wasn't good. It was just something. I'd like to make a motion that the committee accept the recommendations and amounts on it.
Seconded? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. So let's open for discussion. Can we just write down what we're proposing? Hang on.
I believe actually I probably should have used the ARPA request tracker 26 April 26, 22 on my motion.
Yeah, that's.
I would like to amend my motion to include
All right.
the ARPA tracker April 26, 2022 figures from this meeting.
Second the amendment.
All right. So the motion is motion to accept.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
For the committee to accept the figures from the ARPA tracker April 26, 2022 recommendations to the select board. Actually, it's just the figures and recommendations.
Good.
Might want to get rid of the second recommendations down below. There we go.
And Anne, you seconded?
I second.
Okay. Does anyone have additional discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to change it all and put it all in sidewalks now, all 3 million. Sorry, couldn't resist.
You might get some backing, Joe. I mean, all right. If there's no additional discussion, let's do a roll call vote. Ms. Luttrell,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Bartel,
Aye.
Mr. Schoner,
Aye.
Ms. Rubenstein,
Aye.
Andrew Hamilton. I will vote aye. And Mr. Wood is absent. All right. Whew. We have a list. And of course, as I'm looking at this motion, I'm realizing I didn't have a minutes taker again because I seem to always forget that. So before we go on, we now have a motion to put in the minutes, which I hear is an easy out on minutes. So this could be an easy week for someone. Someone wants to
I'll
grab
take it.
minutes. Thanks, Joe. Okay.
I'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So I think that brings us to the next thing on the agenda, which is the presentation. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about in the actual proposals and discussions or anything like that? Or can we pop over to how we want to present this out? All right, let's talk about the presentation. So if I'm looking at the charge that we are given. Too many windows open. Right, so the committee shall solicit input from town departments, boards, committees, and commissions. We've done that. The committee shall solicit input from the South Borough community through means including but not limited to surveys and public forums. The committee shall develop an evaluation tool to rank proposals for funding, taking into account the benefit of the requested improvement to town operations and or the community as a whole. The committee shall develop a report to present to the select board that will include a list of all proposals submitted for consideration, in addition to those recommended for funding. And then it should be the recommendation should be presented to the select board at a regularly scheduled meeting, not later than May 16th, 2022, and be prepared to discuss their process and findings at that time. So I think we basically just walk them through the process, right? This is what we did. This is the outcome. Here's the recommendations and the rationale for each of those recommendations. And then here's the total list of proposals if they'd like to have them. Something like that. In terms of timing, I know we had talked about getting something in front of them before town meeting. Town meeting is next Tuesday, so it's in 2 weeks, right? No, next Wednesday. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong month. That's why nothing makes sense. So it's a little over a week from now. When's the next regular select board meeting? Does anyone have that?
Is it 2 weeks from tonight?
It's the 10th.
I don't know. There's one going on right now.
All right, let's look it up. See if they have it. They often put it at the bottom of their agenda if it's not posted.
Well, I mean, this is all public forum here, so the at least the numbers that we're posting can be sent right over to them, and then with a presentation to follow, so they can get the information of our recommendations without hearing a presentation.
Correct. That's true. Yeah.
We all know they're not going to render any real decisions in terms of public decisions anyway. It'd probably be 4.
Yeah.
So it won't make much of a difference.
And they already have that 150 that they're applying. So
The warrant's already set too. So
yeah. So May 17th is the next routine meeting. So May 4th. So it's that day after we're supposed to do it. But I would suggest maybe we ask for that date, or they can schedule a separate meeting for us to present at. Would that make sense? And that would give us 2 weeks to kind of finalize everything up nice and tidy and be done.
So you're picturing a PowerPoint presentation? Andrea?
Yeah, I am. Are you picturing something different?
No, who's good here at creating PowerPoint presentations? Would you mind creating a draft?
I can make a draft.
You're being so good, Andrea.
I've done a lot of PowerPoint in my day.
You know, I suspected that was the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day it was fun, and then the next day it wasn't, right?
Yeah, it's
I used to have fun doing them
yeah.
too.
So you'll
Yep,
have a draft for us tomorrow, Andrea, to go over?
absolutely. 9 a.m. Okay, just in terms then, so I think if we want to get something over to them sooner rather than later, since obviously we have a vote now and a decision, do we maybe want to just swing through and try to clean up the language in the tracker so it's obvious what we are presenting to them and make sure that it's really clear? Because I don't want to send something to them and create more confusion, because I could see that turning into an endless email chain.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't think we should send them the tracker. I think we should create a PowerPoint presentation and you know, run our process to completion and then give them our work product.
Joe, do you disagree with that?
No, I'm not. I have no. How can I disagree with something perfectly reasonable? No, the only thing that I might say is that we could easily just make a list of what was agreed upon and send that over, like I said, preliminarily, just before the annual meeting, and then with the presentation actually being the formalized event. But you know, the list is the list, whether you put it in PowerPoint form or just write it on a Microsoft Word document. The numbers and the categories and the numbers aren't going to change. It's up to the committee. It doesn't matter.
I like the idea of a list rather than all the little detail. I mean, we can always give that to them if they request it. I wonder, are we going to list them in a particular order?
See, I think this is where the problem comes in. If we don't actually finish a presentation, then we have all these questions that we would actually answer while creating the presentation. So,
I mean, if I send a list, I'm going to get a call from at least 2 people tomorrow.
Well, you could say,
And I
here
can-
are the things we've approved, and they are not listed in any particular priority order.
I think that if we wanted to do that, the one thing I would ask is, right, so I've got this tracker that's like rough, and I think we all know what we're talking about. We all know what we just voted for. There's a lot of details in that. Someone reading it is like, even not the whole spreadsheet, but just like the title headlines isn't going to know what it is, right? So I think we'd have to go through and clean up the language in it before we sent it anywhere. Joe, I see your hand.
Why don't you just write an email to Lisa, ask her if she wants a list. If she does, we'll make a list. Otherwise, they can just wait till a presentation. Because if they're not going to use it and they don't need it, then it'll take less time for you to send an email.
All right, I'll tell her we voted. I'll tell her that we're cleaning it up. We've got, we see the next presentation is on, or the next routine select board meeting is the 17th. If they're comfortable with waiting till then, we can come in and do the full presentation then. If they want a list prior to that, we can, but we won't have the whole thing put together. So we will not answer questions, just won't answer the phone calls. Just go straight to voicemail. Duck if I see people at the transfer station. Okay, I will send her that note and just let her know where we are. If they think they need the information for town meeting, then we have our next meeting presumably next Tuesday. So we can always throw together a list and she can at least have that in hand for Wednesday.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Everyone agree with the general format of we go through what our process was, what we did, what the criteria were that we looked at. These are the proposals we selected and why. here's the total list of proposals, and probably we won't go through and talk about each of them, but we can include information on why they weren't selected that they can look at their leisure, but isn't something I think we need to belabor. Does that make sense? And I can put together a draft before next week.
We can help you if you want to give us tasks.
So I'm just thinking like what the easiest way to do this is.
How about if you,
if it's-
how about
I'm
if
just
you-
thinking for a minute. Yeah.
How about if you ponder this, overnight or whatever, and then certainly we're all here to help you if you need help or where you identify where you'd like help.
All right.
Yeah, even if it's just the right copy that you're then going to copy and paste into boxes in the presentation. And
Yep.
that's whatever saves time, makes it easier.
All right. It might almost be better to just put together a scaffold for next week and then like we all look at it. And if there's like more kind of like full fleshing out that needs to happen, then we kind of divvy it out is kind of what I'm thinking. It's probably more straightforward to have kind of the template to start. But
Yes,
let me see how it goes. Yeah.
I agree. Group PowerPoint creation is not often successful. So
Yeah. All right. Good. Anything else? It's 8:43. I can move us through the end of the agenda if there is nothing anyone else wants to talk about. Okay.
Do we do minute?
No. That's what I mean by moving along the rest of it. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
We're past the meaty part and on to the administrative stuff. Okay. So next steps. I will put together that draft in some form prior to our next week's meeting and share it around. Next Tuesday is good for folks. That is the 3rd, Tuesday, May 3rd. We're already in May. Yeah, 7:30.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have a room booked yet, so I will do that tonight. Okay. And I don't believe there's any other follow-up needed at this point. I can give John wasn't here today. I feel like we voted without him, so I will also give him a call just to kind of give him a heads up kind of on where we are, because I think that's the right thing to do. Administrative business. So we have minutes from the 10th, the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st that are outstanding. And I got your minutes from the 7th, right?
Whatever last week was.
Is it the 21st? Hold on, let me look.
I think it
No,
was.
maybe I'm totally making that up. Okay, hold on. Then
I don't
we've got some
remember.
better- Hold on. I don't think it was last week's. I thought it was
14th.
yeah, 14th. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we are way behind on the 10th, and I'm starting to get emails about it from the town. But that's John. So let me check in with him because I think he had said he'd done it, but I don't have them. So let me double check with him. If not, maybe I'll see if there's just like 3 or 4 sentences we can throw together and have something to vote on next week. The 7th, Tony, that's you, and the 21st is you. I'm gonna start getting threatening emails next week about
Nope.
the 7th. So
You'll have them next Tuesday.
perfect. Okay. So then let's vote on the minutes from the 14th. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes on April 14th as written.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Ms. Luttrell?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Stepped away.
Oh, he stepped away. All right, we still have a quorum. Mr. Schoner?
Yes.
Ms. Rubenstein?
Yes.
And I will vote aye as well. So the motion passes. Moving on, I don't believe we have any unfinished business unless there's something someone wants to flag up. Okay. So now we go over to public comment. I have 0 attendees in the chat. So if any of those 0 want to raise their hands, they're free to. But otherwise, we will move on. Next meeting, we already talked about it. So I think we are all set. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
second,
Second.
All right. Mimi, I'll take your second. Roll call, Ms. Latrell,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
I still know Mr. Martell, Mr. Schoner,
Aye.
Ms. Rubenstein.
Aye.
I will vote aye. It is 8:46 and we are adjourned with a list. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Good
Great
job,
job, Andrea.
Nice job, everyone.
Oh.
You'll have to join Capital when you're done with this. They're looking for people.
We have so much fun.
So much fun.
You're
No,
so good
honestly,
at it.
honestly, Jason runs a very tight ship, so it's very organized. You know, you're always getting lots of information, so it is an interesting place to be.
All right.
So,
All right.
everyone.
We'll get
Good
through this
night.
one first. Do this one first. All right.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.